Welcome to the 2015 Candidates Forum, sponsored by Wallingford Community Women. I'm Jean McFarland, the program moderator. This segment features 5 of the 12 candidates running for Board of Education. The first part of the program will consist of questions asked of the candidates by the members of the local media, including the New Haven Register and the Record Journal, and students from Mark T. Sheehan High School. The second part will allow each candidate to make a closing statement. During the question and answer portion of the program, each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to a question. Each candidate will then have 2 minutes to make closing remarks. Before beginning the questioning, I'd like to introduce the candidates running for Board of Education. They are, from left to right, Kathy Castelli, Democrat; John J. Shea, Democrat; Jonathan Chappell, Democrat; Jean-Pierre Bellat, Republican; Amanda Durr, Republican. Michael Broder, Republican, was unable to attend our meeting tonight. So let's begin. Eric Vo, would you please ask your first question of Kathy Castelli?
Hey, Kathy.
Hi, Eric. How are you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
Good to see you.
So with the Lyman Hall Athletic Complex construction continuing and with all-day kindergarten funded,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear, with all the...
all-day kindergarten funded, what are some other projects that you would want to see, I guess, get funded, or what do you deem your top priorities?
Oh, gosh, I wasn't prepared for that question, Eric. Wow, new projects. Well, I certainly want to see the rest of the complex completed, which would be the athletic field, the athletic house that's needed, new locker rooms, whatever else was on that original list. I did co-chair that committee that met. We met with all the coaches to get their druthers. And there were some other items that they would like to see. They'd like to see a coach's room, things like that. So that certainly would be something I would like to bring to fruition so that we truly have a completed sports complex that we could be proud of as a town. Instructionally, I know we want to continue with our language program to bring more global languages into the curriculum at the lower grade levels, and that, of course, costs money. We need teachers that can teach those particular languages. So that would be another area. Thank you.
Kate Sabo, would you please ask a question of John J. Jay?
Hi, Mr. Che. My question would be, how would you plan on dealing with the harsh weather that we face here in New England? How would you keep snow days to a reasonable number, and in the event of an extreme winter, how will you work to make up the snow days into the calendar?
Yeah, great question after last winter, huh? Of course, it always has to be safety first, and in New England it's so difficult, and God love Dr. Menzo, the superintendent, who's on the phone at 3:30 to 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, the process is that he's on the phone with the police department and with the weather. They actually have a weather forecaster that they have assigned to them to determine whether or not to have school. So I think it always has to be based on that and safety first. If we do have a lot of school days, we've built a lot into the calendar this year, so it's already determined on what'll happen with how the days will be taken. If they exceed those, I think you just add them on to the end of the year. Now, I think there's enough built in there that you could do that, but hopefully we don't see another winter like we did last year.
Thank you.
Leah Sass, would you please ask your question of Jonathan Chappell?
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? Sorry.
Sure, his name isn't Jimi Hendrix.
So my question for you is, how would you like to improve the way students are taught now? Would you like to see, or would you like to kind of enact one-on-one technology ratios? And how would you feel about different learning techniques in the classroom?
It's a very good question. First of all, I think that teaching is best left to those who do it. And the methods that they employ on a day-to-day basis, I'm not sure at the Board of Ed level you really are going to direct that method. As far as technology, in a perfect world, we would all be having an iPad from the school to take home and to do with what we want. Budgetary constraints, unfortunately, play into that. I do know that the district has advanced technology and also is always looking for grants to technology to pay for those things for your students. That's the way of the world. I have 4-year-old twins who are already using iPads, so I think that by the time they're at Lyman Hall High School, they'll definitely be using a technology we probably don't even know exists yet. But budgetary constraints are always an issue. And then, of course, we need to educate the teachers on how to use the tools before they're actually put into use. So that's what I think I would do. Thank you.
Luther Trammell, would you please ask the question of Jean-Pierre Bolat?
Good evening, Mr. Bolat. I'd like to take you back to July and the nominating convention for the respective parties. And you made a comment in your acceptance speech that says, in part, there are folks out there that are trying to get God out of our schools, to take morality out of our schools. I will fight for the souls of our children. I'd like to ask you if you feel that that observation violates the spirit of the separation between church and state. And if you disagree, I'd like you to explain why it doesn't.
Well, Luther, I think that's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. To the first part, it does not violate any idea of the separation of church and state. Our Constitution does not state that there is a separation of church and state. That's derived from a letter from Thomas Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist Church, I believe it was, in which he made that quote. Our nation was founded under Judeo-Christian principles, and it does have God in our nation. So my comment was, as we say the Pledge of Allegiance under God, why are we taking that out of schools? And I'm just going to relay one story to you. You all remember the Newtown Massacre. What was the first thing that happened after that massacre? It was a prayer vigil, a candlelight prayer vigil at the school. Nobody complained about that. And we call upon God to help us in times of trouble. Why do we not call upon God all the time? That was my point.
Eric Vo, would you please ask a question of Amanda Durr?
Hi, Amanda.
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. So the current Board of Education is going back and forth in terms of revising the process a parent would take if they objected to instructional material. I wanted to get your thoughts on what you would have recommended. Would you have left the process as is, where the parent goes through numerous steps, or would you have just let the complaint go right to the Board of Ed to deal with?
I think that parents need to have a say in what's going on, within the curriculum. It's very important to have a team effort, not only with the teachers, the Board of Ed, but the parents as well. And I think all of that feedback needs to be taken into consideration. And as far as there being a questionable content in a parent's mind, I think that they should definitely talk to the teacher and the Board of Ed, and it should be addressed in a positive manner, including all parties. And I think that at the end of the day, that the Board of Ed is responsible for reviewing that and coming to a conclusion collectively. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks.
Kate Sabo, would you please ask the question of Kathy Costelli?
Hi, Ms. Costelli.
Hi, Kate.
Yesterday, Speaker Ray Lozano gave an assembly at Sheehan High School that highlighted the dangers of substance abuse. Assemblies and advisory discussions on this matter happen several times each year at our schools, but substance abuse continues to be a growing issue in our high schools and now our middle and elementary schools as well. how do you think that this problem can be addressed?
So you're probably aware, Kate, that there was a health survey done a couple years ago, and we are in the process of reaching out again and doing another survey. The results of that first survey didn't go and sit on a shelf. I know the Coalition for a Better Wallingford has done their part in making bringing an awareness to some of the issues that we have, such as mental health and substance abuse and alcohol. Within the school system, we have developed some focus areas, one of them being exactly that, and come up with some goals and objectives associated with each of those focus areas. And then within the goals and objectives, we've actually come up with some strategies on how we're going to improve the already robust programs that we have in place, but hopefully moving everything forward so that bringing more awareness to these issues. Wallingford is not unique. These issues happen everywhere. And they're certainly happening in Wallingford, and we need to address those issues as best we can. Keep in mind, too, though, that those surveys also brought out a lot of positive results, and there's a lot of good things happening here in Wallingford, too. Thanks.
Leah Sauce, would you please ask a question of John Che?
Hi.
Hi.
So my question for you is, what qualities do you believe that you possess that will make you a member of the Board of Education who can really support our schools?
Good question. What qualities do I possess? Our three children went through the whole Wallingford school system. And so I think that's probably the most important quality. And now watching what they're trying to do with their lives and what their friends are trying to do with their lives, they're still fortunately, they all still have a lot of close friends here in Wallingford, is what I'm trying to bring. That's a perspective I'm trying to bring to the Board of Education. The other is that I work for a company by the name of Ulbrich here in Wallingford, and we have about 325 employees here in Wallingford. So I'm seeing it from an employer standpoint. What skills are we looking for as employers for our companies and to provide jobs for the children here? And actually, we're in the midst now of beginning a program that's a certificate program in Wallingford. It's an advanced manufacturing technology to provide courses for these kids, these students, to prepare them for jobs in the technology-based companies here in Wallingford.
Okay, thank you.
Luther Trammell, would you please ask your question of Jonathan Chappell?
Good evening, Mr. Chappell. Do you feel that the school district would benefit from a consolidation of two high schools into one, or some other consolidation of the district's other schools?
If the question is, would it have a budgetary impact, the answer is maybe. I'm more concerned with the premise that it's an impossibility on a short-term basis, and meaning we've done or are doing a track program at Lyman Hall. It's got a 10 to 15, maybe even to 20-year life. We have a VOAG program. Those VOAG kids take math at Lyman Hall proper. They eat lunch at Lyman Hall proper. The VOAG building, although separate by a few feet, is part of Lyman Hall High School. And so I think that some think that you can close Lyman Hall and simply bus everyone over to Sheehan and have one high school like other towns do have. That's, in my opinion, an impossibility on a short-term basis. It should have been thought about way back before Sheehan was built, perhaps. I went to Sheehan, so I enjoyed my time there. I'm now on the Lyman Hall side of town, but I think instructionally it's an impossibility because you can't fit everybody at Sheehan High School. You can't fit everybody from Sheehan at Lyman Hall High School. And I think with the VOAG program, that is an issue as to closing of Lyman Hall, if that's the way you went.
Eric Vo, would you please ask your question of Jean Bolat?
Hey, JP. Hey, Eric. I want to kind of circle back to what Luther had asked you earlier, and in some of the board meetings, the question and the topic of morality has come up from you. But, I mean, do you think that's overstepping the boundaries of a school board member? And I don't know if you believe if teachers or a board member should be teaching the morals of another person's child.
Thanks for the follow-up on Luther's question. First and foremost, in our Board of Education policy, it states that the philosophy of our board and our teachers are to inculcate a sense of values in our children, and that our teachers are supposed to teach morally. So that's already there. So I'm not stating anything new. And I do believe I'm in very good company on this subject. I do happen to have just a quote here from a recent speech. Barack Obama in the Rose Garden stated, "And in these gentle but firm reminders of our obligations to God and to one another, you are shaking us out of complacency," when he spoke to the Pope. "All of us may at times experience discomfort when we contemplate the distance between how we lead our daily lives and what we know to be true, what we know to be right." He said that the Pope was providing a profound moral example. So I don't think that it's out of bounds for a Board of Education or an educational system or any teachers to follow the example set by the President of the United States.
Kate Sabo, would you please ask your question of Amanda Durr?
Hi, Mr.
Hi.
My question is, what are your plans for the curriculum writing process? How much flexibility do you think should be lended to teachers and perhaps even the students in contributing to the process?
Thank you for your question. I think it's very important for this curriculum to be a team effort because, within the last decade, I was a high school senior, so I understand what goes into the curriculum process and what it takes to be educated and know how to be successful in college and out of college. So I think that teachers most definitely need to play a big role in this because they're the ones that are in the classroom on a day-to-day basis. It is not the Board of Ed that's there teaching. So we need to take into consideration, what they have to say and their expertise. And, ultimately, too, the Board of Ed needs to play a big role as well because the reason there is a board of directors of any organization is to lead and make the best decisions for the benefit of everybody. So I think it's definitely a team effort, and thank you for your question.
Leah Sauce, would you please ask your question of Kathy Costelli?
Hi, Ms. Costelli.
Hi, Leah.
My question for you is, what do you believe the Board of Education can do to support students in a heavily tested environment that we are in?
How about some less testing? I'm sure you'd appreciate that. Wow, that's a very profound question. We have so many mandates from the state and from the federal government that require some testing. It is a hot topic these days. I'm hoping that both at the federal level and the state level, some changes can be made there that we can implement at the local level. Unfortunately, a lot of times our hands are tied, and we have to, if we want funding from the state and from the federal government, we have to comply with their requirements. If there's additional testing going on within specific classrooms, that could possibly be addressed, but we'd have to know that was occurring. Thanks.
Luther Trammell, would you please ask your question of John Che?
Good evening, Jay.
Hi, Luther.
What can the district do to improve students' preparation for going into the workforce? Not everybody's going to go to college, and I know you're active in that particular realm within the time you served on the Board of Education. Is there anything that the district can do better that you'd like to see the district do?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I alluded to it in my my last response, but there's a program that we're developing this year, and it's going to be put into the classroom last year. Dr. Menza has spent a bunch of time on this, and we're going to be the first in the state, and it's looking like the first in New England to do this. So we have a certified nursing assistance program in the school system now, and the students who go through that come out with a certificate. And we're developing right now, and the board liaison, I guess, on it, one of the people involved in the development of it, of an advanced manufacturing technology certificate. So it would be akin to that CNA certificate. It'll be probably 2 courses. The curriculum is going to be put together by a group of local technology-based companies. We had meetings over the summer. We just had one about 3 weeks ago on it as well. And we're looking at content. We've looked at all the community colleges, technical colleges, and actually 4-year colleges in the state for direction on curriculum for that. So I see that to be one. There's still 20% of the companies 20% of the jobs in Wallingford are still manufacturing, which today are really all technology jobs. And they provide good wages, probably $65,000 a year. So we're looking to do that. And then I know Dr. Menzo he's always a step ahead of the rest of us. He's now looking at that and other clusters of career opportunities in the area as well. So I see more of that happening, this being the first step in that sort of approach.
Eric Vo, would you please ask your question of Jonathan Chappell?
Hi, Mr. Chappell.
How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on school security. I know right now to enter a school you have to show your license or some form of ID, and then there's other measures that the Board of Ed and the administrators have put in place that obviously the public won't know about, but do you think more needs to be done in that area?
Let me start off by saying it's a great question. It's a question that requires much discussion and thought among many stakeholders. Of course, security is the utmost importance. We never want anything to happen, and if we can all know ahead of time what it would take to stop something awful from happening, we would do it. Unfortunately, some of these things require choices, again, going back to budgetary constraints and probabilities, and that's an awful thing to say with a child's life, is based on probabilities. What should happen? I think the district has responded. It's gotten grants to put in these boxes that, although an inconvenience at times, frankly, I'm glad they're there, and I don't want to open the door for somebody else, even if I do know them. Even having a wife in the school, I like that I don't have to just walk in. There are people out there that say an armed guard at every entrance. That's a lot of money, and unfortunately, it's not always the answer, and there has been circumstances where that hasn't helped either. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer. I wish I did. I have an answer, I just don't have an answer that I can assure you will make every child safe, but I will do my best.
Kate Sabo, would you please ask your question of Jean Bolat?
Hi, Mr. Balat.
Hi, Kate.
I participated in Wallingford student exchange programs with China and Argentina, and my experiences in both programs were life-changing. How do you plan to continue Wallingford's progress in global outreach and to provide students with cultural experiences and awareness?
Oh, that's a great question, Kate. And just by way of my background, I've traveled to over 26 countries all over the world. And in many of those countries, I went to schools and gave talks and helped kids. And I think the experience that you students have going to another country or hosting children, and classmates from other countries is just absolutely phenomenal. I still remember my senior prom date was a foreign exchange student from Sweden, and one of my best friends was a foreign exchange student from Italy. So those experiences and friendships that you build are invaluable on both on a cultural level and an educational level. You get to see how other students learn, and you may learn and pick up some different things. So it's absolutely incredible, totally invaluable, and I would support as much as possible the continuation of the growth of this plan. And I congratulate Dr. Menzo and his great relationship with the World Affairs Council of Hartford, who supported the trip to China. Thank you.
Leah Sauce, would you please ask your question of Amanda Durr?
Hi, Mr.
Hi, Leah.
My question for you is, how would you support the idea or not support the idea of not requiring students who participate in a varsity sport or an intense physical activity to not have to take a gym class, as it could be too much for them physically?
Thank you for your question. I actually was an athlete in high school and in college for my freshman year. And so I do understand how trying it can be on a student's body who's, participating in a varsity or JV sport. I definitely think that there's other things that they can maybe be partaking in gym class. There are some kind of low impact activities that they can maybe be partaking in still alongside their classmates. So I think that there's definitely a way to get around that without causing injury to them so that they could still partake in their after school sport and not have any, sustainable injuries. Thank you.
Luther Trammell, would you please ask your question of Kathy Costelli?
Kathy, how comfortable are you with the process that's ongoing, changing how the parents would go about objecting to a book that's part of the curriculum of the schools?
We are actually in the process of revisiting that policy. It hasn't been brought to the board yet. I am on the policy committee, and we are struggling with it. One of the questions that had been asked earlier was whether or not that policy, which is called the reconsideration of instructional materials, if that should allow parents to also bring forth new materials as opposed to just removing materials. So that kind of opened up my eyes anyway to say, wow, that could really lead us down a path we don't want to go to. So now what I'm considering is whether or not that policy's name should be changed to, instead of reconsideration, removal of instructional material. That would eliminate any potential, we wouldn't have a policy to support a parent bringing forth instructional material that's not already there. I do think the policy needs to be there. However, there is also an opt-out option for every parent, and I think that should be the first step. A parent who doesn't want a particular instructional material being used for their student, and that doesn't have to just be English novels. It could be any textbook. They can opt out. They can opt their children out of maybe a section of the history book. They don't want them to learn about a particular area. So we do need to have it there in case when it is brought to the attention of the teacher, and then the parent wants to go further than just opting their child out. We do need to be able to allow parents to bring forth their concerns and act on them accordingly. I'm running out of time, sorry.
Eric Vo, would you please ask your question of John Che?
Hey, John, how are you?
Good, Eric.
So communication between administrators and parents have been the subject of some conversation between some groups of people, mainly on Facebook. So I'm curious, I didn't know what ways you would improve communication between parents and schools, just so there's either they know what's going on or they're aware of issues.
Regarding the activity on Facebook, I couldn't tell you. I never got onto Facebook because I don't really want to know anything more about my children than my wife and I already knew about our children. But so I'm not familiar with the activity that's going on in the internet. But in terms of communication between the schools and the parents, I really believe that the biggest influence on a student, of course, is his family. And next to that is a teacher, right? And particularly in adolescence. So I think the more and more communication between the teacher and the school system, the better. That has to be a partnership. I think regardless of what you're talking about in terms of what we do in school, I think the parents need to be involved and be a part of it. So, I strongly support anything that increases the involvement of parents with the students. I wish there were a heck of a lot more parents involved that attended events at night. I know it's difficult, but it's important. One that I'm really concerned about is parents' involvement with the schools in the whole college search of students. I think that's a huge problem right now. These kids are coming out of school with student loans that they had no idea of $800 to $900 a month. Parents had no idea of it. Kids had no idea of it. I think there needs to be a big conversation and a financial plan involving the parents, the kids, and the guidance counselor for them to work through that with the kids before the students start applying to schools to avoid these financial disasters that they're now living with when they get out of school for a long time after. But I support as much communication as we can have.
Kate Sabo, would you please ask your question of Jonathan Chappell?
Hi, Mr. Chappell.
Hi, how are you?
How do you feel that Wallingford as a school district compares with others in the surrounding area and in Connecticut?
I'm a Sheehan grad, and so I think it has and will rank very well. I think that a lot of the things we're doing today, from the food truck to the CNA program to full-day kindergarten, finally I know, to some, we are advancing the district, and I will do my best to continue to advance the district. There are obviously things about education that you'll never be satisfied with. It'd be great if everybody graduated from the high schools and went to Harvard. That's just not that's a lofty goal. It's good to have lofty goals. It's not reality. So I think that when you compare test scores, it'd be better to be on top, of course. But I think Wallingford as a whole in the district is doing very well. And I think you'll find that hopefully when you do graduate, that your school district gets looked at well by the college of your choice.
Leah Sauce, would you please ask your question of Jean Bolat?
Hi, Mr. Bullat.
Hi, Leah.
My question for you involves preparation of high school students for after high school. In Lyman Hall and Sheehan, we have classes, personal finance and life on your own. Do you believe that at least one of these courses should be required before graduation? And if so, do you think they're beneficial enough to be required?
I think that's an excellent point, and I would fully support a requirement like that. Having been involved in international business myself as a career after my Navy career, I understand a little bit about that, and I'm sure Mr. Shea over here would also support that. And that our children need to be prepared, to go out into the real world, and there are costs out there, and so the better we prepare them. I remember, the better we prepare them, the better. I remember my mother sitting me down when I was in middle school and teaching me to balance her checkbook. And that was one of the most valuable lessons I ever had. And then the second, one of the most valuable classes I had at Sheehan High School was typing and note hand. Those courses helped me perform in college and afterwards much better than my peers who never took a typing class or a note-taking class. And I fully agree that financial stability is very, very important, and having a very good outlook and vision on what your financial burden is going to be, especially these days when college is so expensive, when the economy is in tough times. We need to teach our students to best deal with that. So I would fully support a class like that.
Luther Trammell, would you please ask the final question of this session with Amanda Durr?
Evening, Luther.
Good evening, Amanda. Okay. Do you feel that the district would benefit from the consolidation of either one high school into the other, or one of the elementary schools into one of the other elementary schools?
Thank you for your question. I think as far as condensing two high schools to one, from my perspective, I grew up in Milford, so there was always foreign and law. And kind of having that friendly competition around Thanksgiving always made things really great. And I think, too, from an expense point, that would be very expensive to take two schools and condense them to one. I don't think that's something that can be achieved over a short period of time. I think that would definitely have to be, reviewed and taken into consideration, the taxpayers' dollars. In addition to that, I think that it all depends on enrollment. So maybe monitoring enrollment to see if maybe there's a trend over a couple years, and if the enrollment keeps going down, then I think that might be something that would make sense to consider in the future for sure. And as far as the lower grades condensing, I think enrollment would play a big role in that. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the question and answer portion of the program. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Kathy Costelli, would you please begin?
Sure. Thank you, first of all, to the Wallingford community of women for coordinating this forum, and for our reporters, our students, and for the community that is both here physically and that will be watching this televised version. Thank you to all of you for your interest. I've served 8 years on the Board of Ed, and during that time I feel the decisions that I have made have always been in the best interest of the students. We have a daunting task facing us in preparing these kids for the workforce. It's a workforce unlike anything we knew when we were I'm retired, so in the workforce that I knew. Nothing like that today. It's a different workforce. We have to weigh that along with our fiscal responsibility here in Wallingford to make sure that we don't burden our taxpayers tremendously. I believe my role as a board member is to listen to and respect the opinions and the perspectives of the community, the taxpayers, the parents, the teachers, the administrators, and the students. I need to weigh all of that before I reach a decision. My own personal opinions and perspectives are just that, they're mine. I need to think about everybody's perspective when I make a decision. I want to do it the best way to make the best decision for the best interest of the kids. Thank you, and I hope you'll support me in the November election. Thank you.
John Che.
Thank you. I would like to thank the Wallingford community women, as well as you folks from the high schools and the newspapers for being here tonight. And I'd like to thank as well all the teachers, administrators, and support staff in our school system. And they say that as they continue to do rankings of careers and impact, that teaching continually comes out to be the profession that makes the greatest contribution to society. And I can begin to see why. I just can't imagine having 20, 25 children. But it's a wonderful group we have in Wallingford, a very committed group. And so I think that we're in a very good place. I think there's a lot left to do, but I think we're in a very good place with the Wallingford school system. I think we have a roadmap, a very good roadmap through the strategic plan that we put together and that we continually update and get input from all over on. And so I think going forward, we need to just stay that path. We want to be sure that now a real focus, and there was a question on testing, and yeah, can there be too much testing? And I'm sure it feels like it. But if we're using this to make sure that we're catching students that are falling behind as quickly as we can, that's a good thing. And there's been a lot of resource put into the school system over the last few years to support the children, to have them catch up. I think that's where our focus needs to really be, on making sure we keep those children up to grade in all those other areas so everybody can move forward. So I'd like to help with that. I also believe that the results of this health survey that was done are very critical. And we've recently put together a community-wide organization, and I think it's very important that the board supports the school system's role in that over the course of the next 2 years. So I thank you all very much for the opportunity to be here tonight and for an opportunity to continue for another 2 years on the Board of Education. Thanks again.
Jonathan Chappell.
I'll reiterate, thank you. I'm a product of this school system and of this town. I've lived here all my life. My parents still live here. They actually live with me, which is interesting. I have a lot of stakes. I have a lot of stakes. Sorry, a lot of stakes in the school system. My wife, who I'd like to thank for being here tonight to support me as a teacher at Rock Hill. I know many of you out there and out there at home have been one of Mrs. Chappell's parents, if you will. I have 3 children. Beautiful Grace, who's sitting in the office with us here. She goes to DAG. She's in STEP. I have twin boys who are 4. One who's headed to Stevens next fall. I can already hear the calls coming from the parent, coming from the teacher, I mean. And I have Drew. Drew's at Cook Hill Integrated Preschool. He receives speech and OT. I know just in my household the individualized learning that has to go on in this district. Each student deserves the best possible education that we can give them. That's how I feel, and those are the positions I'll take on the board. I think I'm qualified. I'm a lawyer by trade. The board president of JDRF, which is a nonprofit with a revenue of about $3.5 million a year. I've been in a room and had to make decisions, sometimes very important and difficult decisions. And I feel that my professional experience, my experience on the Parent-Teacher Advisory Council in the town has qualified me. I know what the commitment is to be on the board and be a productive member, and I plan to do that. So I would thank you for your support and hopefully your vote in November.
Jean-Pierre Bullat, would you please?
All right, thank you very much. And again, thank you to the Wallingford Community Women for organizing this event. And thank you for all your great questions tonight. First and foremost, as Mr. Chappell, I am a product of this town's educational system, 1983 graduate of Mark T. Sheehan High School. And I'm very proud of from whence I came and where it sent me. I was able to have a successful 24-year in the U.S. Navy, 24-year career in the U.S. Navy, and as an international businessman afterwards. And I'm very happy to be here again. My life since graduation has been a life of service, and I'm honored to serve. I was asked to run from my party, and I'm glad I did, and I'm very proud to represent my party and the ideals of that on the Board of Education. And I would be honored to continue my service, so I hope if the voters decide to vote me in to continue my service, I'd be very proud to do that. As a steward of the taxpayers' money, I will work to constrain the rising costs of education. Things in our tough fiscal times, we have to keep a sharp eye on our budget, and I will continue to help constrain those rising costs. I'll also work to ensure that education remains as local as the kitchen table, to make as many decisions here in Wallingford as we can. I will champion all efforts to fight bullying and to protect our children from bullies. And I'll champion moral correctness over political correctness. Thank you very much.
Amanda Durr.
I want to thank the community of Wallingford women for hosting this excellent forum and the panel. Thank you so much, girls, for coming out. I also want to thank my family, friends, and my campaign team for all of your support throughout this experience. It's really meant a lot to me. I want to tell you a little bit about my adoption. I was adopted as a baby from Paraguay, and with the support of my parents, I went on a 3-year journey to finding my birth mother. I was successful. Back in May, I went to Argentina, and I located my birth mother and my siblings. It was a very humbling experience. I learned so much about myself and the power of perseverance. Through that experience, I brought a heightened awareness of the importance of community involvement and education. and how detrimental it is to our society. So upon my return, I decided I wanted to get more involved with Wallingford. I wanted to do something that would have a meaningful impact, especially on our youth. Within the last decade, I was in our high schoolers' shoes. I know what it takes to get a job in this economy. It's very difficult. No longer do we have local competition, but our students are up against global competition. So I know what it takes to equip them with the right tools to be successful. In addition, my boyfriend and I recently were going through the first-time homebuyer experience, and we will be happy first-time homeowners in Wallingford, hopefully in the next few weeks. And we plan on getting married and having a family, hopefully a big one, and all of my kids will end up going through the Wallingford school system, so I have a vested interest in what goes on. It's very important to me. And I think that my age is not a challenge, to this position. I think that I could bring a whole new element and really help be an asset and a resource not only to students and parents, but my fellow, hopefully, board members. I hope that you come out on November 3rd and vote for me, Amanda Durr, for Board of Ed, because education is so important and really, at the end of the day, affects all of us. So please also support my fellow Republican candidates and just come out and vote. It's very important. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for tuning in tonight.
Thank you. This concludes part 1 of the 2015 Board of Education Candidates Forum. On behalf of the Wallingford Community Women, I thank you for watching and remind you to please vote on November 3rd.